Okay, so hello everyone to our fifth stream and lecture number 4. Hello, how is everyone? Hi everyone. We have a very lovely lecture today with a very lovely special guest also joining us a little bit later. Sorry that we started a little bit later, but also our guest will join us a little bit later. It's also a little bit because of the time difference, but will be a really cool guest and very famous developer. So very excited about that. I'm also fine. Thank you so much for asking that. I'm always looking forward to Mondays to have these lectures and talk a little bit to everyone here. And yeah, there was just a giant rainbow in front of my window because it was really sunny, but there was a little bit of rain. Okay, so let's start. It's lecture 4. This time there's no typo already on the first slide, I hope. And again, for those who never joined the streams before, so this is a lecture at Graz University of Technology about game design and game development, about selected topics. If you feel the urge to tweet about the topic or share things you developed which tackle the topic game development and game design, please also use the hashtag TUGameDev. And you can find all the course materials, and I will upload the slides because with today, hopefully we finish the AI slide set. Because this is I think already the third part of the AI lectures. And then I will upload the entire slide set to gamelabgraz.com. So usually the schedule is that it would start at 6:30 and then continue with the guest lectures, but this time we start a little bit later. If you have any questions either now or later for our guest speaker, feel free to ask them in Twitch. And I try to read the Discord channel as well. I'm sorry if I sometimes miss questions, but it is a little bit, yeah. I sometimes cannot have the guest speaker via Discord most of the time, and the Discord messages at the same screen. So that's why I did forget about this the last time. Okay, good. And we have the weekly game discussions, and we always start with the weekly game discussions. So can you remember what did you have to play last week? This is always a game which is for free, which is available online, and which is usually a really groundbreaking game design format. So who played the stream from last time? The game from the last stream? Yes, Dwarf Fortress. How did you like it? What was your experience with Dwarf Fortress? Ayo, Chuck, hello. Hi, Spatium Space. Hi, Ninja Cat. Hi, everyone. It was different. Why was it different, Sheldon 37? What was different about the game experience? It's probably a game which you need to give some time and which you need to learn, I guess. So what did you find different? What was Sheldon? I like the ASCII art, but it was also a bit hard to get used to. Yes. Let's talk a little bit about the game developer aspect. So I find it always very interesting to not only look at the game, but also who was the developer of the game. And because actually it is very impressive because this is a huge game. And the main developer was one person. So this was one of those games. So it's two brothers, Tarn Adams and Zach Adams. The main developer was Tarn Adams, and it's a huge project. It was mainly developed by only one person, and I find this really, really impressive. It was released 2006, but they are constantly adding new things, new updates. So it's huge. It's huge, and they're really trying to build this world full of freedom, and yeah, very different, very interesting, and a very groundbreaking one, because also from the technical point of view, there are really lots of interesting aspects to it. Some other interesting news about that. Again, it is a little bit challenging because they gave it away for free. Again, it's a groundbreaking game, but still they gave it away for free, and just by having donations to it. And so recently it was announced, this was last year, that Dwarf Fortress is actually coming to Steam. So as simple as that, it's published by Kit Fox Games. So back then, the publishing studio, which is basically the development studio, is Bay 12 Games. They're also, I think they're based in the Seattle area. I'm not sure about that. And now it's coming to Steam in order to create some revenue, some income. Because again, it's like you have this really, really successful project on the one hand, but then on the other hand, you also need some sort of a business model to be able to survive and live from it. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress. So who keeps playing it? Or are you already ready for the next week's homework? So as a reminder, for those who do not know our concept here, so every week we play a different game. Here is the, let me quickly. Here is the website, the course website. And if you go to game discussions, you can recommend your new games, your games here. So here, this is a list of games from all different countries, from different years, but it's important that they are free, or if they're not free, that there is a free demo available. Okay, and if you can vote for your favorite game. So we already voted for Dwarf Fortress, and let's keep it there. You can just add some votes for your favorite games. We already played Stanley Parable, we played Dwarf Fortress, and there's a clear winner for next week. This will be exciting. This is an entirely different type of game, but apparently there's a huge interest in that game, which is Dota 2. Let's play Dota, everyone. Who is a Dota player in the chat? Yeah, don't spend too much time on it. Yeah, how much do you play? So yes. Do you play often? Yeah, I'm MOBA. 1,500 hours. 3,000 hours. Okay. Yeah, I think you already did your homework. Yeah, but it's about discussing the game next week a little bit, talking a little bit of the game, getting an idea of the different genres. So again, you have Dwarf Fortress, very experimental, like construction, simulation, roguelike game, developed by basically two persons, versus Dota. So this will be interesting. And then let's compare a little bit next week. Okay, and don't forget, add your games here. Add new recommendations here at the bottom. Oh, I already see League of Legends coming. Okay. So Dota it is for the next week. Good. Let me get back to my slides. Fifth homework, Dota it is. Okay, so today the theoretical part of the lecture will be the third part already about why AI is shaping our games. Again, as a reminder, there are fantastic resources. This is only a selected topic about this topic. AI in games is huge. I just try to give an overview about various topics. And if you're interested to do some research in this area or to get more involved, there are fantastic resources, and I can also highly recommend the Game AI book. And yeah, a lot of interesting and really cool things here, which you can learn about. We mainly covered 4 topics. So we talked about using AI to play games. We talked about AI to contribute content, and we already tackled the topic about how to use AI or AI concepts to understand players. And what we use today is how we can incorporate design elements to actually design games. Just as a recap, playing games with AI, super old concept. So this was always a challenge for computer scientists already very early on. It's always super exciting to try to build cool algorithm which are capable of beating the pros. And again, nowadays we have really, really cool concepts how to also already beat some of the Dota and tournaments, for instance. So it's getting more and more interesting. Then we talked about contributing content. Again, this is mainly about procedural content generation, but please, as a reminder, this was just a very broad overview that this does exist and was far from complete. So we talked about different procedural content generation concepts and how it is used, and a little bit about the advantages and downsides from using that. So again, you can build entire worlds, you can create small dungeons, you can create animations or specific objects such as weapons through procedural generation. Then we already talked a little bit about understanding players. So I will have another selected topic lecture more specifically about data analysis in games. And here it's also about understanding the players. So again, since this is really a topic I find super interesting, and this is also about data analysis in games and how to make smart data analysis, there will be a dedicated lecture also on this topic on understanding players with all sorts of methods. Good. So just as an overview, this is something from my own research. In that case, this was the slide which the very low resolution. No, it's internet connection. So basically, what you can see here are the 6 different levels from Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2 is a game which is very, very similar to GTA. So you can drive, you can shoot, you have cars, you can fly, you can do all different sorts of things. And what we did here, we look at every single level. And every single level had a different focus. Like there was a focus, for instance, where you were basically using your car a lot, like most of the part of the games. Then there are portions of the game where you are shooting quite a lot. Then there are parts where you have to walk a lot, and so on and so forth. And what we did, we wanted to find out if there are different player types within every single level of the game. So we used the different features from the data we were able to get from Just Cause 2. Those were, for instance, kilometers driven, or the kill-death ratio, or the number of headshots and things like that. And then based on that, we fed a clustering algorithm. In that case, archetypal analysis, k-means would be another option, and found different clusters. And we were able to see, okay, there's a cluster of players who really likes to use the car a lot, and there's a cluster of players who doesn't care a lot about their performance. They just want to finish the game as fast as possible. Then there is a cluster of players which are really into making a perfect 100% achievement version of the game. So we gave those player types names, like the elite players, the rushers, the achievers, and then we looked if they're how those people converted from cluster to cluster over the different levels, the different missions. So for instance, maybe Russia did not have enough specific game design elements in one specific mission. So it would be likely, for instance, that this person eventually drop out at this specific mission. So what you can see here is also all the people who already dropped out. And so as a game designer, you can use a tool like this, for instance, to find out, where we are losing a lot of people. Why are we losing a lot of rushers here? Or maybe because a specific part of the game cannot be completed fast enough. So maybe as a game designer, you can make it more attractive for them by adding more elements. Then we have social network analysis. So this is not, this is a very, very different method. Just as a little bit of an overview already, what I'm gonna talk about more in the future. This is also a way how to analyze games, and a method which I am really much in favor of. So also if you play Dota 2 now, this might be very, very interesting to look at through that perspective. So we try to find out sort of social patterns within Destiny. I'm just curious who in the chat played Destiny already. Destiny is this open online shooter. And what we did, so you have PvP mode and PvE mode in Destiny. And you can always play with a team. I think it's a group of 3 or 4 people you would play with, against other 3 or 4 people. I can't remember exactly anymore. And so what we did, we built this network, this social graph. So every time 2 players would play with each other, they get connected in the graph. And then we try to find out whether or not their performance and their retention rate would change somehow if they are constantly playing with friends, like with the same people, or if they are constantly playing with random people to improve, for instance. So this is this sort of research we're interested in. Yeah, we will talk about player behavior a little bit more in one of the future lectures, but it's a pretty interesting tool to look at games through a different perspective. Okay, and as a 4th part, I would like to talk about how to use AI as part of a game design concept. So this is something which is actually very interesting. This is heavily based on a paper, on a scientific paper, but it is used that AI elements are part of the game design experience, or of the game experience then as a player. This is something which is really interesting. So it's mainly so this part of the talk is mainly based on these resources. It's a really lovely paper called AI-based game design patterns, which was developed by a group of really cool researchers in this field around AI in games. So And here it's really about using AI in the foreground of games, because what we heard in the very first part, where AI is basically this technique which you use in a game to sort of fool the player, not fool the player, but you want to have smart enemies, but the enemies shouldn't be too smart. You want to have this illusion of intelligence, and everything is really about that the AI is always in the background. So you're building your AI system, but as a player, you shouldn't be aware of the AI. But here, however, the AI comes into the foreground. And the AI is pretty much part of the game design experience. Do you have already some sort of an idea what games or what theories I could think of when talking about AI in the foreground? Do you already have maybe an idea about that? In the meantime, I continue with the slides. So basically, AI-based game design is something which is relatively young, and I think it can be very cool concepts to use AI to make your games more interesting. And also AI, there are so many AI concepts out there, and you can absolutely use them as a tool and make use of them in a smart way. This is an overview of all the AI patterns. Again, this paper is really interesting, so I can highly recommend you to read that. It's not too long to read. It gives you, however, really good examples of the different patterns. And I will just talk about a few of them. But there are some ideas already in the chat. In Tigavi mentions in chess, you can see the engine's recommendations we're playing on some websites. Yes, absolutely. So this would be a really good example for, I think this is the AI is guided, or AI is a trainee. No, AI is guided, I think, where you basically can already see recommendations by the AI, for instance, or what the AI could do next. Or so that's a pretty interesting concept. So let me give you some examples. So this pattern is called AI is visualized, and the pattern is basically that you provide a visual representation of the underlying AI state. So this should make the gameplay revolve around an explicit manipulation of the AI state. So what you can see here, for instance, is that you see what the AI sees and how the AI would behave next. Who knows this game? Sorry, spoilers. So who knows this game in the screenshot? So usually you would not see what the AI does next, basically. But in that case, you can really see very like the next smart move of the AI. And this gives you as a player also a better understanding of how the AI is behaving. So this game is called Third Eye Crime, and this is a stealth game, and it illustrates this AI pattern by visualizing the guard AI position, tracking and estimation system. So here the AI system is really basically visualized. And this direct visualization of the AI state allows the designer to build a game around manipulating, understanding it, and mentally modeling how the AI state changes. This is how the authors describe it. So very, very interesting and smart way of designing AI. And again, I find it super impressive because one of the main issues nowadays is also that people are a little bit scared of AI systems because they just don't know what's happening in the background. But with techniques like that, it gives people a so much better understanding what is AI, how does AI work, and helps people to understand. So this is actually pretty much also educational. Okay, who knows that game? So in that this pattern is called AI as a role model. And the pattern is to provide one or more AI agents for the player to behave similar to. So, who knows that game? Spy Party, yes, really interesting game. So in Spy Party, the idea is that one player is a spy at the party, and all the other players are agents, so AI agents. And the opposing player is a sniper, and the sniper is watching the party and it tries to shoot the spy, just this one person. So the gameplay for the spy is pretty much trying to act very similar like all the party AI agents. So the real human, for instance, this is the one real person, tries to behave pretty much like all the AI agent in this game. And the other person, the second person observing the scenery, is trying to find the one real human. So that's a really, really interesting game principle, actually. Spy Party is a pretty cool game. Yeah, and this is basically where you have AI as a role model. You provide one or more agents for the player to behave similarly to. So the player tries, usually it's vice versa. Usually the AI tries to be smart as a player, but here it's exactly the opposite. The player tries to behave like an AI does. Pretty interesting concept. Good. AI as a trainee. Who knows that game? This is also a very, very special game. This is the pattern called AI as trainee. So you have player actions train an AI agent to perform tasks central to gameplay. So yes, Harald 937, it's black and white. So here you would use, for instance, machine learning techniques which revolve around learning new behaviors using examples. So, for instance, by using play actions as a source of examples, an AI agent can learn to perform specific tasks with this indirect control. And yeah, so for instance, here you would train your creatures. So black and white is this god game. Yeah, there was unfortunately never a good successor, Iconosila. And it is this god game. And you as a player, you can create those creatures, which are basically AI-based creatures, to take direct actions. And they learn based on your input. They learn a set of behaviors. You can give them rewards. So this is positive reinforcement. And yeah, so you cannot take direct actions on the trainee basically, but always indirect actions. Again, also very good and interesting principle to take away the fear of AI, because you're also, as a player, you're learning how to interact with the AI and how AI a little bit works. Really, really cool concept here. Yeah, next pattern number 4. AI is editable. So who knows this game? Well, it's getting more interesting. In this game, you should have the player be able to make direct changes of elements in an AI agent that is central to the gameplay. So usually if you think of any AI techniques, they usually tend to have some sort of parameters, like the weights in a neural network, specific data structures, for instance, nodes in a behavior tree. And if you manipulate those, they have a direct impact on the behavior of the AI. And this is now the interesting part. So if you allow the player to be able to edit those parameters or these objects, and therefore make an impact on the outcome or specific elements of the game, it's pretty interesting element as a game design element. One cool example here is this game called Galactic Arms Race. So this is not super famous, but it does have a really interesting AI concept, and it's really underestimated. It's not FIFA, almost, so this is a space shooter, and here the player would use different weapons, and the weapons evolve through an underlying neural network, which basically represents the change weapon firing behavior. Yeah, and you can basically, through the gameplay, you can find different sets of firing behaviors and try to get better firearms basically through that. Again, also very interesting to learn a little bit more about AI. Number 5, AI is guided. Who knows that game? I think more of you probably know this one. So in this game design AI design pattern, there are also game design patterns. So we should also talk about that. This is Sims 3, probably Sims 3. It seems absolutely. Here it's about the player assists a simple or brilliant AI agent that is threatened with self-destruction. So, and absolutely, Sims is the perfect example about that. In Sims, it's really just about talking, about interacting with all the characters, with all the little AIs, and walking around. The gameplay really should emphasize on this pattern on players acting around the AI, protecting them, directly acting, maintaining the AI, and yeah. And The Sims is really a perfect example. They're acting human-like, they're human-like agents in a social work, and the entire gameplay revolves around that the player really tries to address the needs of the simple agents, like being able to go to a toilet, have some food, have some water, not drown in a swimming pool, not being killed by evil players. So it's a pretty, yeah. Do you have any other examples for that sort of game in mind? There are many similar games actually. In the meantime, I'll continue with the next pattern. Creatures 3, absolutely. So this is the last pattern I'm going to introduce. And this is, I think, my favorite pattern. And this is such a cool game. So this is AI as a villain. I skipped a lot of patterns before and after this pattern. So please go and read the whole article and paper around that. It's really good. So AI as villain is a pattern which says it requires the players to complete a task to overcome an AI component where the AI is aiming to create an experience rather than defeat the player. So the huge difference here is every AI opponent has always a very, very simple goal, which is defeating the player. An AI opponent, if you think of chess, is trying to defeat you as a player. An AI enemy in a shooter game is trying to defeat you as a player. However, there are more sophisticated systems where the AI is not trying to just defeat you. The AI opponent is trying to create an entire experience. So who knows this game? So it's basically, rather than the AI being a character in the game world, so this is what the authors say, it is an actor attempting to create an experience for the player while maintaining a facade of being a character. For the player, gameplay still revolves around defeating the opponent, yet for the opponent, gameplay revolves around shaping player behavior in a desired way. It is alien isolation, exactly. And it is just a really brilliant horror game, because what you can see here is the Alien. It's 1.8 on Steam at the moment. Alien Isolation is a first-person survival game, and your main opponent is this alien. And this alien is not designed to just defeat you and go and kill you. It is about creating the experience that you're constantly hunted by these creatures. This game is really designed, and this alien character that is constantly harassing you, that is always like sneaking around you, even though it could kill the player always directly. This is about this hunting experience. So the alien is constantly trying to hunt the player and trying to seek the player location. And even a weak version of the AI is visualized here. It's the AI is learning from the tactics of the players and uses this to make it even a little bit more creepy. And yeah, this is a really, really interesting concept here, to create an experience, not to defeat the player, but to create an experience. Yeah, it sounds fun. It is also really fun. It's a really, really cool game, and yeah, very, very different to play.